The global economy is slowing down, but India is holding steady. The World Bank has upgraded India's growth forecast to 6.5%. That's the highest among all major economies. Strong agriculture, better rural wages, and rising tax collections are driving this momentum. Add to that recent reforms to the GST. India's growth engine is still powered by its domestic market. But not everything is smooth. Next year's forecast has been trimmed thanks to Trump's tariffs. We'll get you the details. Also on the show, on the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks, negotiations are gathering in steam for a peace deal in Gaza. How China and Iran are pushing back against Trump and skirting sanctions. Is naval diplomacy India's next big bet amid geopolitical headwinds? And how AI is resurrecting the dead. Is it a healthy trend? First, as always, the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. During the call, he congratulated the Russian president on his 73rd birthday and reiterated his commitment to further deepen ties between the two countries. The Indian Prime Minister also invited President Putin for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit, which will be held later this year. While the Russian leader briefed Prime Minister Modi on the latest developments regarding the war in Ukraine. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will begin his two-day visit to India tomorrow. While in India, he will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Starmer's visit comes just months after India and the UK signed the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. This is the British Prime Minister's first visit to India since he came to power in 2024. Syria announces a comprehensive ceasefire with Kurdish forces after a meeting between their President Ahmed al-Sharaa and Kurdish leader Mazloum Abdi that followed deadly clashes in the northern city of Aleppo. But Syrian authorities have rejected Kurdish demands for a decentralized government, giving them greater autonomy. Madagascar's president appoints an army general as the country's prime minister as he hopes to quell surging protests against his leadership that have plunged the country into crisis. The demonstrations, which started last month, have now grown into an angry campaign demanding the president's resignation. Hundreds of bus drivers in Peru's capital Lima end their strike. The decision comes after the government agreed to hold talks over widespread extortion fueled by organized crime and the murder of 47 drivers this year. Most companies had joined the strike after gunfire killed a driver and injured another over the weekend. And the Nobel Prize in Physics is awarded to a trio for their work on quantum physics in action. The prize was in recognition of experiments in the 1980s which showed that quantum tunneling can also be observed on a macroscopic scale, involving multiple particles, by using superconductors.
It's a challenging time for the Indian economy. Trump's trade war is testing India's economic resilience. So far, India has managed to avoid the worst side of the tariffs. Today, the World Bank delivered some good news for India. It has upgraded India's growth forecast for this year. The new number is 6.5%. That's up from 6.3% projection from June. In simple terms, India is still growing at a good pace, even as the rest of the world slows down. The World Bank says India will remain the world's fastest growing major economy. So what's driving this growth? Agriculture output and rural wages have been better than expected. The World Bank also points toward improving tax collections and the recent reforms to the GST. Now that's the goods and services tax. Last month, India reformed GST. This is an indirect tax on all goods and services. Earlier, the GST had 4 tax slabs. These were slashed down to 2. The World Bank believes that this reform is helping the Indian economy. Fewer tax slabs and simpler rules are helping business activity. So as things stand today, India's long-term growth story remains intact. But certain risks remain. While the World Bank has improved this year's outlook, it slashed India's next year's forecast. It expects India to grow at 6.3% in the next financial year. They are blaming Trump's tariffs for this. Remember, Indian exports are facing a 50% tariff. Now, that import tax impacts 75% of India's exports. The World Bank says India will need to recalibrate. It needs to adjust to new trade conditions. So India shouldn't completely ignore these risks. Now, despite that, the World Bank remains optimistic. It says India leads South Asia in terms of growth. It credits India's domestic market for its resilience, the consumption and domestic demand. It's providing strength to the economy. It is helping India maintain a growth rate of above 6%. So that's the assessment of the World Bank. A few days ago, S&P put out a similar report. S&P is a global ratings agency. It kept India's growth forecast unchanged. S&P expects India's GDP to grow at 6.5%, just like the World Bank report. The S&P gives a comprehensive assessment on the Indian economy and the factors driving growth. It lists out multiple positives. The S&P says that India's domestic demand remains strong. A good monsoon is supporting agriculture. Government spending remains consistent. Add to that the tax cuts and falling inflation. S&P expects inflation in India to fall to 3.2%. It believes a drop in food prices will provide relief to consumers. So those are the broad positives. India's Reserve Bank is even more optimistic. That's the Central Bank of India, the RBI. Last week, the RBI raised its growth forecast to 6.8%. The RBI's governor, Sanjay Malhotra, spoke out. He said that India's economy is resilient despite global pressure. What's the RBI's take on the Trump tariffs? Now, the governor said that America's new tariffs could slow down India's exports. But he also believes government measures will help reduce the impact. In its last review, the RBI kept interest rates unchanged. Experts now believe a rate cut could come in December. This would make loans cheaper for businesses and borrowers. So far, the RBI has stayed cautious. It has avoided any rush decisions. This comes as India and the US continue their trade talks. The next few months could bring more clarity on that front. But global assessments have pointed to one common fact. India's domestic market remains strong. It is the main reason that India has stayed resilient. That is India's biggest shield against global pressure. Policymakers should take note of that, even as they negotiate trade deals abroad. They must keep focus on the domestic market and local demand. It's a big day for West Asia. Today marks the second anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel. On this day, in 2023, the region was plunged into war. Hamas terrorists killed almost 1,200 Israelis. They also took 240 people hostage. In response, Israel has unleashed a brutal war on Gaza, a war that has killed over 60,000 people. But after months of relentless fighting, there is hope for peace. Because today is also day 2 of the peace talks. Israeli and Hamas negotiators are currently in Egypt, in the Red Sea town of Sharm el-Sheikh. They are not meeting directly. Instead, the talks are being mediated by Qatar and Egypt. The question is, will there be a breakthrough? Reports say the first day of talks ended on a positive note. Both sides discussed a roadmap for future discussions. Hamas reportedly raised objections to Israel's continued attacks on Gaza. They feel it complicates the ongoing negotiations. Beyond that, the talks covered hostages, aid, and a ceasefire. Over in Washington, the US president is optimistic. He says there could be a deal soon.
I think we're going to have it soon. I think we're going to have a deal. It's a hard thing for me to say that when for years and years they've been trying to have a deal with Gaza. But, literally for centuries, okay, if you really think about it. But we're going to have a Gaza deal, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Remember, Trump has set a deadline. He wants the first stage of the deal to be wrapped up this week. And what's the first stage? Hamas must free all hostages within 72 hours of an agreement. After that, Israel's military will withdraw. And we'll get to the details in a bit, but first, the backdrop of today's talks. It's not just any backdrop. It's the trauma of what happened on the 7th of October. Memorial events were held across Israel, including at places where Hamas terrorists struck. Take a look. In Jerusalem, there were protests. It was led by the families of the hostages held in Gaza. They carried pictures of their captive kin. They also urged the Israeli government to end the war, to strike a deal to bring back the hostages.
There is a deal on the table. There is an opportunity to end this war and bring everybody back home. We all deserve it. We deserve it. Our neighbors deserve it. We want this war to end and all to come back to their homes.
For President Trump, you are the one that can bring them home now. Please make it happen. And again, I want Tal. I want Lur that was kidnapped from near Yitzhak together with Tal, and all the 46 hostages in one deal home this week. Thank you.
Over in Gaza, the attacks continue. Israel has carried out multiple airstrikes on Gaza. Since Friday, when the deal was proposed, more than 100 people have been killed. Just today, around 8 people lost their lives, meaning the attacks continue. Yes, the intensity has reduced, but people are still dying, which brings us to the sticking points. There are 3 main ones. The first is disarmament. Trump and Israel want Hamas to surrender its arms. That's non-negotiable for Netanyahu. Israelis say it's necessary to ensure there is no repeat of the 7th of October. Basically, the plan is to defang Hamas, but the group has not agreed to this demand yet. They feel disarming will leave Hamas vulnerable to Israeli attacks, if not today, then in the future. Now, the second sticking point is hostages. Trump's deal requires Hamas to free all 48 hostages, that too within 72 hours of a deal. Again, that's a risk for Hamas. Once the hostages are freed, Hamas has no bargaining chip. They will have to hope that Israel holds up its end of the bargain. And the final sticking point, no future role for Hamas in governing Gaza. Again, this could be a red line. Hamas has enjoyed political relevance since taking over Gaza. If they give that up, they won't be at the table. They may have no say in a future Palestinian state. These are likely to be the 3 major sticking points in Egypt. Now, there are 2 ways of looking at it. 1, this is to be expected. Hamas has lost the war on the battlefield, so it's natural for Israel to make maximalist demands, and there are also historical precedents for disarming the losing side. Now, that's one way of looking at it. The other way is this. These demands make the livelihood of a deal less, and no deal equals more deaths. But as things stand, there is optimism in the air because there is pressure from all sides. Trump and the hostage families are pressuring Netanyahu. The Arab countries are pressuring Hamas. Let's hope they can quickly come to an agreement. Donald Trump is breaking an unwritten rule of U.S. politics. He is deploying U.S. soldiers into U.S. cities, that too on flimsy premises. On Trump's radar, there are two Democratic cities, Chicago in Illinois and Portland in Oregon. The president is taking soldiers from Republican states and deploying them in these cities. Why? Over allegedly rising crime. But the move has split public opinion in America because this is a country built around opposition to tyranny. So deploying U.S. soldiers on U.S. soil has been considered a strict no. Why then is Trump doing it? And what's the fallout? Our next report tells you more.
Global fight like World War II. The U.S. Army knew our troops needed more than courage. Fight for civil rights.
The U.S. Army is the most powerful in the world. They have fought in the trenches of World War II and the arid wastelands of Iraq and Afghanistan. But President Donald Trump has a new assignment for them: tackling crime in U.S. cities. At the center of this mission is the National Guard. These are backup soldiers stationed in American states. If needed, they are activated for federal missions, mostly at the request of those states. But Trump says he needs them. He has already deployed these soldiers to 4 U.S. cities: Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Memphis, and Portland. His next target is Chicago. All these cities are ruled by the opposition Democrats, and Trump says these cities are riddled with crime. In Chicago, the trigger was an incident that happened on Monday. An armed woman rammed her car into Trump's immigration agents. Within hours, Trump ordered 300 soldiers into Chicago. Immediately, Illinois' Democratic officials pushed back. They have filed some 40 lawsuits against the Trump administration. The state's governor says the White House is spreading chaos.
I refuse to let Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, and Gregory Bovino continue on this march toward autocracy. Their plan all along has been to cause chaos, and then they can use that chaos to consolidate Donald Trump's power.
A judge has refused to block the deployment in Chicago. Instead, she has asked the White House for an explanation by Wednesday night. If the reasoning is flimsy, the deployment could be blocked.
Watch out, watch out!
Over in Portland, Trump was thwarted by the courts. A judge ruled that the president's claims on crime were untethered to facts. She also flagged concerns about the sovereignty of states. Thus, the deployment to Portland was blocked. But Trump isn't giving up. He is planning to appeal the court's verdict. And if all else fails, Trump has floated a nuclear option, invoking the Insurrection Act.
The Insurrection Act, under what conditions or terms would you?
Well, I'd do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that.
The Insurrection Act dates back to the 19th century. It allows the U.S. president to deploy soldiers at home to put down rebellions or insurrections. Invoking that act would be a legal and political minefield. But Trump isn't joking. He has already dropped enough hints about his plan. Last week, the president addressed top U.S. generals in Virginia. In that speech, he said something chilling, that U.S. cities could become training grounds for the U.S. military.
And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. Because we're going into Chicago very soon. That's a big city with an incompetent governor, stupid governor, stupid.
In a country like the U.S., such statements cut deep. America was founded on revolutionary values. Its political culture is dominated by themes of standing up to tyranny and authority, which is why deploying U.S. troops on U.S. soil was a strict no. Other presidents have done this, but often to quell riots or at the request of the state. but Trump is doing it unilaterally. In doing that, he has set the stage for a legal and constitutional crisis.
When Donald Trump launched his global trade war, he thought that he was rewriting the rules. Tariffs were his weapon of choice. Allies and rivals were expected to kneel. If they did not, they would pay the price. The message was simple: play by Washington's rules or get punished by them. But here's something the US did not expect: the world pushing back. Countries are defying sanctions. They are focusing on their interests. Take China, for example. Beijing has found a way to pay for Iranian oil despite US sanctions. You see, the US has sanctioned Iranian oil exports. It has cut off its access to dollars. But China found a loophole. Reports suggest that Beijing has created a barter-like system: Iranian oil in exchange for Chinese-built infrastructure. And here's how it works. Chinese firms buy Iranian crude, but Beijing doesn't send the cash to Tehran. Instead, the payments go into a shadowy financial intermediary called Shujin. Now, the money is used to pay Chinese construction companies, and this is for roads, airports, and power plants inside Iran. The entire mechanism is insured by Sinosure. This is China's massive state-owned credit agency. All of this gives it the sheen of legitimacy. The result? Billions of dollars worth of Iranian oil is flowing quietly to China every month. In exchange, Tehran gets roads, railways, and political cover. So China is bypassing US sanctions. But Beijing isn't the only one unwilling to play by Washington's rules. There's also Brazil. It is refusing to kneel to Trump's sanctions. Earlier, the US slapped a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports. There were growing tensions, and President Lula da Silva accused Trump of foreign interference. But now he has done something different. Lula directly dialed Trump, turning the fight into friendship. Their chat was unexpectedly warm. The two leaders laughed about old meetings at the UN, and they promised to visit each other. Lula asked for the tariffs to be rolled back, and Trump said that he'd think about it. The two even floated the idea of future visits, Trump to Brazil and Lula to Washington. But make no mistake, this wasn't just diplomacy, it's strategy. Brazil is too big of a player to sideline, and Trump knows that too. So engagement is the only way forward, and that's what both sides are focusing on. Then there's India. Trump too has imposed a 50% tariff on the country. The two sides are still engaging. Trade talks are underway, but New Delhi has made its stance clear.
A lot of these arguments that, freedom of choice is equated with indecision, which is a clever subtext for saying align with me. I think we should call it out. We should say that, look, that's not the way I consider. When we were much weaker, we didn't do it. There is today no case to do it. In fact, when I look at the current trends in global international politics, I would argue that the behavior of states, some of which Ambassador Sybil also referred to, has actually made a stronger case for maintaining strategic autonomy and promoting multi-alignment.
And that's exactly what India is doing, securing its interest. This is strategic autonomy, and India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar reminded everyone why. Back in 1971, when India faced a US-China-Pakistan axis, it signed a friendship treaty with the Soviet Union. It wasn't because it just needed an ally. It is because it needed options. Today, that same doctrine still stands. In a world of tariffs, sanctions, and unpredictable power, India won't put its future in anyone else's hands. Its foreign policy remains guided by multi-alignment, and that is partnerships without dependence. While at first glance, these may seem like three different stories, But step back and the pattern is unmistakable. Each of these stories, oil deals, tariff calls, diplomatic doctrines, point to one conclusion. The world is done being managed.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Colleague now joins us, getting us all the latest from on ground in Patna. Aman, hectic parleys there going on in both camps. What have you gathered? Tejasvi has made it very clear that it is him versus Nitish Kumar. Whether the Congress likes it or not, he is the chief ministerial face of that Gathbandhan. But whether or not the Congress gets as many seats as they want, that's something that will have to be looked at. And the same goes for the NDA side as well.
Well, Poonam, yes, this is a very strange situation, I would say, and it happens every time in Bihar. Elections have been announced yesterday, but neither of the alliances have their seat distribution decided. And within the next 10 days, for the first phase, the nominations have to be filed. So time is really at a premium here. Hectic parleys on in Patna as well as Delhi. I've been to the offices of JDU and the RJD and the BJP today. They are thronged by people who are seeking tickets, coming there to meet the leaders and lobbying for their tickets as such. But that said, I think the troubles in the NDA are still lesser than the troubles in the Mahagathbandhan. Look at the NDA calculation. What I'm hearing is that both the BJP and the JDU want to contest more than 100 seats apiece. That means on the assembly of 243, only about 40 seats are left for the allies. Now, will it be Chirag Paswan getting half of those 40 seats? That seems to be very likely. About 7 to 8 seats going to Mr. Manchi, another 7 to 8 seats maybe going to Upendra Kushwaha, and maybe 20 to 22 seats to Chirag Paswan. That is the formula in the NDA, which seems to be getting finalized so far. I think we'll know more in the next couple of days. On the Mahagathbandhan side, however, the troubles are bigger because the RJD contested over 140 seats the last time. It will have to contest lesser seats this time, maybe 135 odd, and give lesser to the Congress also, about 55 to 60 seats, because Congress strike rate last time was not very good. They have a problem of plenty because they also have the VIP party, which is asking for a lion's share of nearly 60 seats. They're not going to get that much, most probably less than 20 seats. Also, the left parties, which had a very good strike rate the last time, want at least 45 seats. So I think the RJD is trying to bring them down to about 35 seats. Tejasvi Yadav is holding a very important meeting in Patna today evening as we speak, with the left leaders, with all the Congress party as well as the VIP party. And tomorrow there is a Congress meeting in Delhi in which the final formula could be decided. But overall, I think the NDA is fighting this election, Poonam, on the issue of development. In the morning, I went and saw the Patna metro, which was thrown open to the people today. They are show-causing these cases. Right now, I'm standing at the Jayaprakash Narayan Ganga Path, in Patna. This is called the Patna's Marine Drive. People come here for a picnic in the evening to go on do a cruise in the Ganga River. These are things which are unheard of in Bihar maybe a decade, 2 decades ago. So the removal of the Jungle Raj, the installation of good law and order is something that the NDA is contesting this election on, while the RJD is still harping on the issue of the SIR and saying that the Chief Minister is not in the pink of his health.
Right, and speaking of the development push, Aman, you did, like you pointed out, you did witness what the Patna Metro is doing. It was thrown open to the public a day after the Chief Minister Nitish Kumar inaugurated it yesterday. Let's take a look at what exactly the Patna Metro aims to achieve in election season.
So what is new in Patna? New in Patna is the new Patna Metro, just inaugurated yesterday by Chief Minister Nitish Kumar and the Deputy Chief Ministers from the BJP, a priority corridor of 4.5 kilometers. Only 3 stations so far, starting from the 0 Mile station, the Bhutnath station and the Patliputra bus station, which is a very, very busy point in Patna. This whole project will be 32 kilometers long when it's fully complete. But the first section is complete and we are taking this ride for the first time today when it's open for citizen. Passengers are open for the first time today to board this metro. Let's go here and see what the Patna Metro is like. So this is the new Patna Metro, and this is perhaps the first set of passengers which are travelling to the Patna Metro, because this has been opened for passengers only today. This is among the first ones. We are here today morning in Patna. So Patna में metro कितना बड़ा बात है?
ये तो बड़ी हम लोग की खुशखबरी बात है बिहार वासियों के लिए, ये नीतीश सरकार की अभी तो ट्रायल हुआ है और अब फर्स्ट दिन है कि सेकेंड दिन हम लोग को चल रहा है मेट्रो। हम लोग चाहते हैं कि और इसमें डेवलप हो। अभी बहुत सी इसमें त्रुटियाँ हैं अदर स्टेट की मत अकॉर्डिंग, तो देखते हैं कि कितना डेवलप होता है। हम लोग तो नहीं जान रहे थे कि इतना जल्दी डेवलप हो जाएगा और मेट्रो चलेगी बिहार में।
पटना में तो लोग मैं देखा टूटी फूटी बसों में यहाँ वहाँ जाते हैं, तो ये तो बिल्कुल ही एक अलग चीज है।
हाँ, ये तो अलग है। देखिए आप खेमनी चक बाईपास कहीं भी ले लीजिए 90 फीट से, अगर आपको ट्रैफिक जाम मिलेगा, उससे सुविधा ये मिली है। हाँ, थोड़ा सा त्रुटियां हैं अभी, लेकिन वो धीरे धीरे वो भी ठीक हो जाएगी।
And this is just a first 4.9 kilometer long corridor. The ride is just 10 minutes. We'll slowly have a total 32 kilometer long corridor in Patna by 2027, when you'll see this metro project really changing the vision of Patna. Patna has been known for a lot of other things. Nobody perhaps even dreamed that a metro could come here, and we have few families here also coming with their children to show the metro. Metro कितनी बड़ी बात है, बच्चों को भी आप दिखाने लाए हैं।
दिखाने के लिए लाए हैं।
दिखाने के लिए। तो कितना आपको लगता है नीतीश कुमार ने, सरकार ने काम किया? नई चीज है, लोग तो यहाँ टूटी फूटी बसों में घूमते हैं पटना में, मैं देख रहा था पैसेंजर सर्विस। तो
ये तो अच्छा है, अच्छा शुरुआत हुआ यहाँ पे।
और बढ़ना चाहिए, और लाइन बड़ी बनेगी।
हाँ, और लाइन बड़ी होनी चाहिए।
Young Biharis have just come here to shoot videos to see how it looks. Yeah, everybody is making videos here, everybody is doing interviews, YouTubers are here, and this is a big thing in Bihar. As I was saying earlier, nobody really dreamt that Patna could get a metro, but yes, Patna has got a metro.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Colleague now joins us, getting us all the latest from on ground in Patna. Aman, hectic parleys there going on in both camps. What have you gathered? Tejasvi has made it very clear that it is him versus Nitish Kumar.
And now let's talk about Pakistan. Its dealings with the US are raising eyebrows again. A few days ago, a report had emerged. It talked about an offer that Pakistan apparently made to the US. The offer was for a new port on the Arabian Sea, one that would be just miles away from Iran and even closer to Gwadar, the crown jewel of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Reports say this port was pitched as a hub, one that can be used to export minerals to the US. Now, both sides already have a minerals pact in place, so a port deal would have deepened this part of the relationship. But just as the story began to gain traction, Islamabad issued a denial of sorts. A statement was issued. It called the talks around this port deal just exploratory. So what changed? Is China casting a shadow over the deepening US-Pakistan ties? Here's a report.
Last month, Pakistan made a bold pitch to Washington. It offered the United States a new port on the Arabian Sea. Reports say the idea was discussed between officials on both sides, and it was shared with Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir. The plan to build a commercial port at Pasni and use it to export critical minerals to America. It wasn't formal policy, but it was serious enough to be mentioned before a White House meeting. Pasni is a coastal town in Balochistan. It lies just over 100 kilometres from Gwadar, the site of a China-backed port, and about 160 kilometres from Iran's border. Pasni sits near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's busiest oil routes. The area is highly strategic. Control over this stretch of sea gives access to West Asia, Central Asia and beyond. The port plan also included a new railway. This would link Pasni to Pakistan's mineral-rich western provinces. Pakistan is sitting on valuable deposits. That includes copper and antimony, a vital ingredient in batteries, fire retardant and missiles. Pasni was pitched as a shipping terminal for these critical minerals. The estimated cost of the project was pegged at $1.2 billion. It would be funded by Pakistan and US-backed development finance. This offer came on the back of a minerals deal. A US company, Strategic Metals, signed a pact in September. The agreement was with Pakistan military's engineering arm. Last month, Pakistan shipped the first shipment. A modest consignment of just about 2 tons. So, a port deal would have certainly facilitated a larger trade link. But then came the U-turn. Just days after the story broke, Pakistan backtracked. A senior Pakistani security official called the talks exploratory. He said the army chief had no official advisors and denied any plan to hand over port security to a foreign power. So officially, the project does not exist, but the timing of the denial raised eyebrows. This because China is watching. In April of 2015, Xi Jinping launched the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. Alongside then PM Nawaz Sharif, they unveiled a $46 billion plan. Today, it's worth over $62 billion. That's 1/5 of Pakistan's GDP. The flagship project of CPEC is Gwadar Port. It has been declared fully operational since 2021. Pakistan calls it the crown jewel of the corridor. So, a rival port nearby, backed by the US, would not go unnoticed in Beijing. Chinese state media is yet to comment on these reports, but the silence says a lot. Pakistan's denial may have come from its own capital, but the message, perhaps, was meant for another one. Because when it comes to ports, minerals and influence, China doesn't like surprises on its flanks.
We often associate diplomacy with soft power, the power to persuade and win over other countries. But diplomacy can also be hard power, not coercion, but projection. Tonight we are looking at one such diplomatic push, India's naval diplomacy. And here's why. The Indian Navy had a very busy month in September. Look at all the port calls made. Egypt, Greece, Cyprus, Sri Lanka, Seychelles, Mauritius, Reunion Island, Kenya, Singapore, Papua New Guinea, Fiji and Australia. Indian warships visited all of these countries last month, either for drills or for port calls. As we speak, another drill is happening. It's a joint exercise between the Indian and the British navies. The exercise is called CONCAN. It's been held once every 2 years since 2004. But this edition is different because for the first time, aircraft carriers are participating. India's homegrown INS Vikrant is taking part. From the UK, it's HMS Prince of Wales. Both carriers will be operating together. The first phase of the exercise will include anti-air and anti-surface ops. The second phase will be conducted at the harbour. Things like cross-deck visits and sports. And the idea is to promote strategic cooperation and harmony between the two navies. A similar drill was held last year as well, and that was between the Indian and the Greek navies. It was the first ever bilateral naval exercise between the two. The Navy's calendar is packed with such drills. There are drills with the Quad, with Bangladesh, with France, with Indonesia, with Japan, and with ASEAN countries. Now, this isn't just about military posturing. It's also about diplomacy. The question is, how does naval diplomacy help? And why is India doing it? The Indian Navy's diplomatic role is well established. Look at the Navy's official website. It says, and I quote, "Naval diplomacy entails the use of naval forces in support of foreign policy objectives to build bridges of friendship and strengthen international cooperation, on one hand, and to signal capability and intent to deter potential adversaries on the other." So the idea of naval diplomacy isn't new. But how do you pursue it? Through joint drills, port calls, and voyages. It's a lot like normal diplomacy. The most important part is turning up and engaging, which raises the second question. Why is India doing it? Now, there are three main reasons. Number one, it's a geographic requirement. India has always been a seafaring nation. It has more than 11,000 kilometers of coastline. The Indian Navy is the largest navy in the Indian Ocean. It's a first responder to crises in the neighborhood, and it became a blue water navy in this century. Now, what does that mean? Now, a blue water navy can carry out operations far away from its home. It can deploy, stay, and project power in far-off lands. For example, the US Navy is constantly deployed in West Asia and the Indo-Pacific. Similarly, the Indian Navy is a blue water navy. The country's location and geography requires it. Next is reason number two, containing China. China too is engaged in military diplomacy. They stage drills across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Experts say that Beijing's Indian Ocean strategy is focused on containing India, basically boxing in the Indian Navy, which is why New Delhi is pushing back. It is holding drills and visiting far-off ports to deter China. Consider what happened in August. India and the Philippines held their first bilateral drill, that too in the South China Sea, in a region that is contested by Beijing. So naval diplomacy helps India to keep the oceans free, to push back against China's dangerous claims. And finally, reason number three, naval diplomacy is an advertisement for Indian shipbuilding. Currently, India makes up less than 1% of the global shipping market. The government's goal is to turn that around. How? Through naval diplomacy. We saw an example back in 2023. India gifted an in-service corvette to Vietnam, a warship that had been built in India. So don't underestimate the power of naval diplomacy. It is not just about voyages and drills. It's about building bridges.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Colleague now joins us, getting us all the latest from on ground in Patna. Aman, hectic parleys there going on in both camps. What have you gathered? Tejasvi has made it very clear that it is him versus Nitish Kumar. Whether the Congress likes it or not, he is the chief ministerial face of that Gathbandhan. But whether or not the Congress gets as many seats as they want, that's something that will have to be looked at. And the same goes for the NDA side as well.
Well, Poonam, yes, this is a very strange situation, I would say, and it happens every time in Bihar. Elections have been announced yesterday, but neither of the alliances have their seat distribution decided. And within the next 10 days, for the first phase, the nominations have to be filed. So time is really at a premium here. Hectic parleys on in Patna as well as Delhi. I've been to the offices of JDU and the RJD and the BJP today. They are thronged by people who are seeking tickets, coming there to meet the leaders and lobbying for their tickets as such. But that said, I think the troubles in the NDA are still lesser than the troubles in the Mahagathbandhan. Look at the NDA calculation. What I'm hearing is that both the BJP and the JDU want to contest more than 100 seats apiece. That means on the assembly of 243, only about 40 seats are left for the allies. Now, will it be Chirag Paswan getting half of those 40 seats? That seems to be very likely. About 7 to 8 seats going to Mr. Manchi, another 7 to 8 seats maybe going to Upendra Kushwaha, and maybe 20 to 22 seats to Chirag Paswan. That is the formula in the NDA, which seems to be getting finalized so far. I think we'll know more in the next couple of days. On the Mahagathbandhan side, however, the troubles are bigger because the RJD contested over 140 seats the last time. It will have to contest lesser seats this time, maybe 135 odd, and give lesser to the Congress also, about 55 to 60 seats, because Congress strike rate last time was not very good. They have a problem of plenty because they also have the VIP party, which is asking for a lion's share of nearly 60 seats. They're not going to get that much, most probably less than 20 seats. Also, the left party, which had a very good strike rate the last time, want at least 45 seats. So I think the RJD is trying to bring them down to about 35 seats. Tejasvi Yadav is holding a very important meeting in Patna today evening as we speak. with the left leaders, with all the Congress party as well as the VIP party. And tomorrow there is a Congress meeting in Delhi in which the final formula could be decided. But overall, I think the NDA is fighting this election, Poonam, on the issue of development. In the morning, I went and saw the Patna metro, which was thrown open to the people today. They are show-causing these cases. Right now, I'm standing at the Jayaprakash Narayan Ganga Path, in Patna. This is like called the Patna's Marine Drive. People come here for a picnic in the evening to go on to a cruise in the Ganga River. These are things which are unheard of in Bihar maybe a decade, 2 decades ago. So the removal of the Jungle Raj, the installation of good law and order is something that the NDA is contesting this election on, while the RJD is still harping on the issue of the SIR and saying that the Chief Minister is not in the pink of his health.
Right, and speaking of the development push, Aman, you did, like you pointed out, you did witness what the Patna Metro is doing. It was thrown open to the public a day after the Chief Minister Nitish Kumar inaugurated it yesterday. Let's take a look at what exactly the Patna Metro aims to achieve in election season.
So what is new in Patna? New in Patna is the new Patna Metro, just inaugurated yesterday by Chief Minister Nitish Kumar and the Deputy Chief Ministers from the BJP, a priority corridor of 4.5 kilometers. Only 3 stations so far, starting from the 0 Mile station, the Bhutnath station and the Patliputra bus station, which is a very, very busy point in Patna. This whole project will be 32 kilometers long when it's fully complete. But the first section is complete and we are taking this ride for the first time today when it's open for citizen. Passengers are open for the first time today to board this metro. Let's go here and see what the Patna Metro is like. So this is the new Patna Metro, and this is perhaps the first set of passengers which are traveling to the Patna Metro, because this has been opened for passengers only today. This is among the first ones. We are here today morning in Patna. So Patna में metro कितना बड़ा बात है? ये तो बड़ी हम लोग की खुशखबरी बात है बिहार वासियों के लिए। ये नीतीश सरकार की अभी तो ट्रायल हुआ है और अब फर्स्ट दिन है कि सेकेंड दिन हम लोग को चल रहा है मेट्रो। हम लोग चाहते हैं कि और इसमें डेवलप हो। अभी बहुत सी इसमें त्रुटियां हैं अदर स्टेट की अकॉर्डिंग, तो देखते हैं कि कितना डेवलप होता है। हम लोग नहीं जान रहे थे कि इतना जल्दी डेवलप हो जाएगा और मेट्रो चलेगी बिहार में। पटना में तो लोग मैंने देखा टूटी फूटी बसों में यहाँ वहाँ जाते हैं, तो ये तो बिल्कुल ये अलग चीज है। हाँ, ये तो अलग है। देखिए आप खेमनी चक बाईपास कहीं भी ले लीजिए 90 फीट से, अगर आपको ट्रैफिक जाम मिलेगा, उससे सुविधा ये मिली है। हाँ, थोड़ा सा टूटियां हैं अभी, लेकिन वो धीरे धीरे वो भी ठीक हो जाएगी। And this is just a first 4.9 kilometer long corridor. The ride is just 10 minutes. We'll slowly have a total 32 kilometer long corridor in Patna by 2027, when you'll see this metro project really changing the vision of Patna. Patna has been known for a lot of other things. Nobody perhaps even dreamed that a metro could come here, and we have few families here also coming with their children to show the metro. Metro कितनी बड़ी बात है, बच्चों को भी आप दिखाने लाए हैं। दिखाने के लिए लाए हैं। दिखाने के लिए तो कितना आपको लगता है नीतीश कुमार ने सरकार ने काम किया? नई चीज है, लोग तो यहाँ टूटी फूटी बसों में घूमते हैं पटना में, मैं देख रहा था पैसेंजर सर्विस। तो ये तो अच्छा है, अच्छा शुरुआत हुआ यहाँ और
France was once a part of the proud engine that powered Europe. Now it looks like it's running out of fuel. The economy is staggering. The debt is ballooning, and the country has gone through 5 prime ministers in less than 2 years. President Emmanuel Macron has tasked the outgoing prime minister to hold crisis talks, a last-ditch effort to navigate through this crisis. But how did France reach this point? And what does it mean for the Republic? Our next report tells you.
Once upon a time in Paris, there was a president who promised a revolution. Not the fiery kind that gave France the guillotine, but a democratic revolution, a bridge between the left and the right. In 2017, Emmanuel Macron was young, bold and brimming with optimism. 8 years later, he's standing on political quicksand. His 7th Prime Minister since 2017 has resigned. The economy is staggering, and Macron has tasked this outgoing Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, to hold crisis talks, to find a way to end this impasse. But is it really that easy? Let's start with the basics. France's national debt stands at 114% of GDP. around $3.9 trillion. Its annual deficit is 5.8%, and the cost of servicing that debt, the interest alone, will hit $70 billion this year. That is more than what France spends on anything except education and defence. And it's not that the French government doesn't spend. In fact, it spends more than anyone. Public spending is a whopping 57% of the GDP. Tax receipts are 51%. Social benefits outpace any of France's European peers. Yet hospitals are understaffed, universities are underfunded, and everyone feels poorer. How can a country that spends this much feel this broke? Well, that's the French paradox. It is a welfare state bursting at the seams, but hollow in the middle. The current crisis began with Macron's political gamble in 2024. He dissolved the parliament in hopes of a stronger mandate. Instead, he created a three-way stalemate. Between the far-right National Rally, the left-wing France Unbowed, and his own centrist bloc, no side can govern because the other two always unite to block them. Prime ministers have become disposable. 5 prime ministers have left office in just the last 2 years. Behind the politics lies an even bigger problem. France's economic model has stopped working. For decades, the French state has tried to buy social peace with public money. That is subsidies, benefits, and job protections. Each time that discontent rose, governments threw euros at it. Today, that model has reached its limit. Here is an example. France spends over $250 billion every year subsidising businesses to hire workers. But those workers are protected by some of Europe's toughest labour laws, making it hard to fire anyone, and thus harder to hire. The result? A rigid job market, high unemployment, and sluggish wage growth. Parisians accuse Macron of governing by decree. Rural France accuses him of forgetting them altogether. Protesters fill the streets at the first hint of reform, from pension changes to fuel taxes. Headlines are calling France the new sick man of Europe. It has been living beyond its means for decades, and no one wants to pay the bill. But that doesn't mean it is another Greece. Of course, France won't default tomorrow, but Paris does face a reckoning. The crisis today isn't just about debt or deficits. It's about belief, a belief that the state can deliver. If France can't fix that, no amount of budgets, bailouts or prime ministers will save it. Because sometimes the biggest revolutions are the ones that don't happen.
For nearly 2 centuries, coal has been the black heart of industrial progress. It powered empires, factories, and modern life. And now the world has finally moved on. The energy balance has finally tilted toward renewable energy. According to a new report, renewable energy didn't just grow, clean energy has sprinted ahead. In the first 6 months of 2025, solar output surged by nearly a third compared to last year. It met 83% of the global increase in electricity demand. Wind power added its own gust of progress, growing 7%. Meanwhile, coal and gas use has dipped. Analysts call it a turning point. So who led this clean energy surge? It's being driven by China and India. China added more renewable energy capacity than the rest of the world combined. As a result, its fossil fuel use actually fell by 2%. And then there is India. India's renewable energy output grew 3 times faster than its electricity demand this year. Coal use fell by over 3%. Gas use went down by a staggering 34%. But while India and China sprint ahead, what about the traditional climate leaders? What about US and Europe? Well, they have stumbled. In the US, demand for electricity has risen heavily, Thus, coal use has gone up by 17%. In Europe, unpredictable weather, crippled wind and hydro generation, and this has forced a return to gas and coal. Of course, energy transition is never linear. There's always a step backward, but the general trend is an indicator. Renewables are no longer the alternative. They are becoming the default. In fact, solar is expected to deliver 80% of all new renewable capacity by the end of the decade. But while India's grids are going green, its landscapes are turning unpredictable. I'm talking about freak weather. Floods, landslides, and heat waves are rewriting the country's geography. Punjab saw its worst deluge since 1988. Himachal Pradesh's mountains slid into the rivers below. Kolkata was underwater for 2 days. India is now the 6th most climate vulnerable country on earth. Between 1993 and 2022, it faced over 400 extreme weather events that have killed 80,000 people. It caused economic damage worth $180 billion. So, a report suggests the government is experimenting with something new: climate-linked insurance. How does it work? Basically, it is insurance that pays out not when you file a claim, but it pays out when the weather crosses a threshold. Say if the temperatures rise above 40 degrees Celsius for a week, or when rainfall exceeds a certain level. Now, the model is called parametric insurance. In fact, it could change how disaster relief works in one of the world's most climate-exposed nations. If implemented, India would become the first major economy to roll out a nationwide parametric insurance program. And this is not new. India's early experiments are already showing promise. In 2024, Nagaland received India's first disaster risk payout, about $119,000 after excessive rainfall. In Rajasthan, Gujarat and Maharashtra, self-employed women received payouts when the mercury hit extreme levels. Kerala even rolled out an insurance plan to protect dairy farmers, and this after heat stress started affecting their cattle. Globally, also, this idea is picking up. Fiji launched one in 2023 for cyclones. Several Pacific and Caribbean nations are exploring similar models. The topic could even dominate climate finance discussions at COP30 in Brazil later this year. Because the world is standing at a crossroads. Yes, the weather is getting freakier. The cost of adaptation is rising. But the energy landscape is also transforming. Coal may have powered our past, but sunlight and wind are now powering our future.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin, where a massive landslide in Himachal Pradesh's Bilaspur district has led to the deaths of 18 people after a private bus was buried under the debris. The bus carrying 30 to 35 passengers was on its way from Haryana's Rohtak to Ghumarwind near Bilaspur when it was hit by a landslide. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has condoled the loss of lives and announced compensation of 2 lakh rupees from the Prime Minister National Relief Fund to the families of those who died and 50,000 to those injured. President Murmu and Union Home Minister Amit Shah have also condoled the loss of lives in this tragic incident.
अभी सूचना मिली है कि बिलासपुर में एक प्राइवेट बस हादसाग्रस्त हो गई है और जिसमें 15 लोगों की जानें चली गई हैं। 18 लोग मिले हैं, जिनमें से 15 डेड पाए गए हैं और 3 लोगों को हॉस्पिटल भेजा गया है। और शुरुआती अनुमान के मुताबिक समझा जाता है कि बस में 25 से 30 लोग सवार होंगे, लेकिन इसकी पुष्टि की जा रही है। हमारे एसपी वहाँ मौके पे गए हुए हैं। हमारा एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ADC से अभी मेरी बात हुई है।
And I'm joined by my colleague Ranbir on the broadcast to get more details in the wake of this tragedy that is unfolding in Bilaspur in Himachal Pradesh. So far, we know that 18 people have lost their lives after a landslide hit this private bus that was carrying 30 to 35 people. Ranbir, और क्या जानकारी है आपके पास?
जी हाँ, देखिए, जो अभी तक जो आधिकारिक पुष्टि हुई है उसमें अभी जो है जो डेथ टोल है वो सिर्फ 15 है। ये बताया गया है न्यूज़ 18 से। जो एसपी बिलासपुर है संदीप धवल, उनकी तरफ से ये जानकारी दी गई है कि अभी तक जो 9 मेल्स है, 4 फीमेल्स है और 2 मेल बॉय ये बताया गया जिनकी अभी डेथ हुई है, जो कंफर्म्ड है। इसके अलावा जो 2 बच्चे हैं जो इंजर्ड हैं, जो घायल हैं, उन्हें एम्स अस्पताल में शिफ्ट किया गया है। इनमें भी एक मेल है और एक फीमेल है। और ये जानकारी दी गई है कि जो सर्च ऑपरेशन है वो अभी जारी है। एनडीआरएफ की टीम भी मौके पर मौजूद है और स्नीपर डॉग्स भी वहां पर मौजूद है। लेकिन यहाँ पर अभी ये कंफर्म करना अभी बाकी है कि कुल कितने लोग इसमें सवार थे। जो अभी तक की जो जानकारी निकल कर आई है, ये जो है 32 सीटर बस थी जो मरोतन से घुमारवी जा रही थी। और यहाँ पर ये भी जानकारी दी गई है कि जो घायल है उनमें से सिर्फ एक की स्थिति जो है अभी स्थिर बताई जा रही है और अभी जो डिप्टी सीएम है वो मौके के लिए रवाना हो गए हैं। जी,
ये बस रोहतक से आ रही थी। इसमें अबाउट 30 to 35 लोग थे। ये एक बेसिक टूरिस्ट बस थी। और किस हालात में ये लैंडस्लाइड हुआ है? क्या बहुत बारिश के बाद वहाँ पे कोई अलर्ट दिया गया था लोकल्स को कि यहाँ पे सिचुएशन अभी डेलिकेट है, इसलिए यहाँ पे ट्रैवल नहीं करना चाहिए? क्या ऐसी एडवाइजरीज गई थी? क्योंकि बार बार हम देखते रहते हैं कि हैवी रेन्स के बाद ऐसे हादसे होते रहते हैं हिमाचल प्रदेश में।
जी देखिए, हिमाचल प्रदेश में जिस तरह से पिछले 48 घंटों से लगातार बारिश हो रही है और हिमाचल प्रदेश में अभी कुछ समय पहले ही मानसून विदा हुआ है और उससे संभावना ये जताई जा रही थी कि बहुत सारी जगहें ऐसी हैं जहां पर संभावना हो सकती है कि भूस्खलन हो सकता है। और ये जो है ये बेमौसमी बारिश थी। और यहाँ पर ये भी बताते चले कि ये टूरिस्ट बस नहीं थी और स्थानीय लोग ही जो शाम के समय अपने घरों के लिए जाते हैं। जो बिलासपुर जिला है वहाँ का जो इलाका है घुमारवी क्षेत्र का, वहाँ से मरोतन की तरफ से ये जा रही थी। ये जानकारी निकल कर आई है जो बरठी इलाका पड़ता है। और इस बस में जो ये कंफर्मेशन अभी तक जो निकल कर आ रही है, जो एसपी बिलासपुर की तरफ से ये जानकारी दी गई है, 30 से 35 लोगों के होने की संभावना जो है बेहद कम बताई जा रही है, क्योंकि ये बस जो है 32 सीटर थी। और अभी तक की जो इंफॉर्मेशन है, जो ऑफिशियल जो आंकड़ा है, जो आधिकारिक तौर पर जो पुष्टि हुई है, उसमें 15 मौत बताई गई है। और जो 2 लोग इसमें इंजर्ड हुए हैं वो उपचाराधीन है। और यहाँ पर ये भी जानकारी है जो डिप्टी सीएम की तरफ से भी बताया गया, मुकेश अग्निहोत्री की तरफ से, कि ये संख्या जो है 20 से 25 हो सकती है, इसकी भी पुष्टि की जा रही है। लेकिन साथ में ये भी जानकारी निकल कर आ रही है कि जो दो लोग थे जो वहां से गुजर रहे थे, उनमें से एक लड़का था, वो इस घटना को देखकर वो फेंट हो गया था, वो भी इंजर्ड बताया जा रहा है, उसे भी शिफ्ट किया गया है। जो एग्जैक्ट नंबर, जो आधिकारिक पुष्टि जो अभी तक है वो 15 की है, और अभी तक ये कंफर्म नहीं हो पाया है कि एग्जैक्ट कितने लोग जो है बस में सवार थे। लेकिन ये माना जा रहा है, जो एसपी की तरफ से जानकारी दी गई है, 20 से 25 लोग इसमें हो सकते हैं। और यहाँ पर ये भी बताते चले कि जो इलाज है जो घायलों का, वो अभी जो एम्स बिलासपुर है वहां पर चल रहा है। लेकिन बहुत दुखद ये घटना है, और कुछ स्थानीय लोगों ने ये भी बताया है कि जो लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है उसको ये बताया गया था कि जो ये जगह है जहां पर ये लैंडस्लाइड हुआ है, इसको लेकर जो है बार बार शिकायतें दी गई थी कि इस पॉइंट को ठीक किया जाए, क्योंकि यहाँ पर संभावना है कि कभी भी जो है लैंडस्लाइड हो सकता है या कोई और घटना हो सकती है। तो ऐसे में यहाँ पर एहतियात बरतनी चाहिए। लेकिन जो यहाँ पर स्थानीय लोगों की तरफ से जो बात निकल कर आई है, उन्होंने ये बताया कि इसको लेकर लापरवाही भी कहीं ना कहीं बरती गई है, क्योंकि ये जो पॉइंट्स है जगह जगह पर, इन्हें जो है समय रहते दुरुस्त किया जाना चाहिए था, वो दुरुस्त नहीं किए। और जो लोकल लोग यहाँ पर जो ट्रेवल करते हैं, कई सारी जगह ऐसी हैं जहाँ पर रिस्क बना हुआ है। तो ये घटना अब सामने आई है, तो इसको लेकर जो है सवाल बहुत सारे उठ रहे हैं कि लोकल जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है उसकी तरफ से क्या कुछ कदम इसमें उठाए गए। लेकिन बड़ी बात इसमें यह है कि ये दुखद घटना है, आधिकारिक तौर पर 15 की पुष्टि है, और ये भी एसपी की तरफ से बताया गया है कि जो डेथ का जो नंबर है वो और बढ़ सकता है। जी,
Right. Thank you, Ranbir, for getting us that update. So we will continue to track all developments coming in from Bilaspur, ladies and gentlemen. Shifting focus, some more news that's coming in. Malaysia has said that it is ready to fully cooperate with India's extradition request for Islamic preacher Zakir Naik. The Malaysian High Commissioner to India has spoken on the issue, adding that the extradition must be done through the legal and judicial process. Listen.
We are regional neighbours. You can, notice. Malaysia and India, in a way, we are also neighbours in terms of our maritime neighbours. So it's very important that Malaysia works with India closely in terms of political security and also economic development between our two countries. India is a very important regional player. And also India is potentially become a very important global player. So I think it's very important that regardless of the geopolitical situation, Malaysia and India, we always maintain a very close and cordial relation.
And I'm joined by my colleague Siddhant Mishra on the broadcast. So Siddhant, how do you see this statement coming in from the Malaysian envoy? Is this a good sign when it comes to pushing for Zakir Naik's extradition?
Well, that's right, Ayushman. It's a good sign. And in fact, in all likelihood, Prime Minister Modi will visit Malaysia by the end of this month to attend ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur. And in fact, ahead of that, this particular announcement has come from Malaysian envoy. In fact, this follows Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's statement, Ayushman, in August 2024, that his government would consider an extradition request if India provided sufficient evidence. In fact, Ayushman, some reports suggest that India handed over proof to the Malaysian government in the past. And in fact, Malaysia's official position has again been reiterated by its High Commissioner to India. Now, Malaysian High Commissioner has said once again that Malaysia would extend full cooperation to India under the bilateral extradition treaty, because there is already an existing extradition treaty between the two countries. Any extradition will be handled through Malaysia's legal and judicial channels with the decision based on evidence presented. Now, the Malaysian government has indicated that a transfer would depend on India providing concrete evidence. In fact, the High Commissioner also clarified that the case is a judicial matter, not a political one involving the Malaysian government. India has, in fact, made previous requests for Naik's extradition, which were denied by Interpol due to insufficient evidence. Now, Naik, who fled India in 2016, is now residing in Malaysia permanently. In fact, he is roaming worldwide, traveling from Malaysia to other countries.
Right. Thank you, Siddhant, for getting us that update. Now, shifting focus back home, ladies and gentlemen, big news that's coming in from Jammu and Kashmir. What we are learning is that anti-terror operations are currently underway across Jammu and Kashmir, primarily 2 encounters underway in Rajouri and 1 in Udhampur. Security forces, including the Indian Army, the Jammu and Kashmir Police, the CRPF, are conducting joint operations. Heavy exchange of fire is underway between the security forces and terrorists believed to be hiding in the dense forest region in those areas. Suspected terrorists were spotted with weapons by the locals, which led to a search and cordon operation and the subsequent encounter that is underway. 3 operations currently underway in Jammu and Kashmir, 2 in Rajouri and 1 in Udhampur. To get more details, I'm joined by my colleague Tejinder Singh Sodhi on the broadcast. Tejinder, what more details can you get for us?
See, Ayushman, right now 3 anti-terror operations are on in Jammu region, which has led to 1 encounter. This encounter has started in the Rajouri district. Security forces on specific input led a cordon and search operation in the Kandi area of Rajouri, wherein the hiding terrorists believed to be 2 to 3 in number started firing towards the security forces. The fire was retaliated and a heavy exchange of fire is underway right now. This is in the Kandi area of Rajouri, where the cordon and search operation has led to the encounter between the security forces and the terrorist. The another anti-terror operation is still on in the Mandir Gala area of Rajouri's Kotranka area. The security forces laid a cordon and search operation after they got the inputs about the movement of some terrorists in the area. Though there was some firing, the speculative firing from the security forces side, but there has been no retaliation from the other side. So the search operation, the cordon and search operation in this place is underway right now. The third anti-terror operation, Ayushman, is underway in the Dharni top area of Udhampur. This is in the Basantgarh area, wherein the locals informed the security forces that they have spotted some terrorists in the area. These terrorists were seen wearing green, black color jacket and high ankle boots. They were also carrying some arms and ammunition, after which this search operation was launched. So, Ayushman, right now, 1 encounter is underway and 2 search and cordon and search operations are underway in Jammu region. Yes, Ayushman.
Right. Thank you, Tejinder, for getting us that update. So, 3 anti-terror operations currently underway in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, shifting focus to some more news that's coming in. Sources in the Ministry of External Affairs have said that it is verifying reports that an Indian national who has been captured by Ukrainian forces. It's verifying those reports that are coming in from Ukraine. The Indian Embassy in Kiev is working to ascertain the authenticity of these reports, which are emerging from top MEA sources. I'm joined by my colleague Akanksha Swaroop on the broadcast. Akanksha, over to you.
Right, Ayushman. So there's in fact, sources at the Ministry of External Affairs have right now said that they're still ascertaining the veracity of these claims that are being made, because there's a video that's been doing the rounds, which shows a man making certain statements. But the MEA has said that it has not yet received any formal communication from the Ukrainian side. So to say that this is an Indian in the video that's been doing the rounds would be fairly nascent and not credible. But it is. So the reports that were indicating were saying that, so there was a statement in the video that can be seen, a man in custody, and he's apparently in Ukrainian custody. So reports are stating that his name is Majoti Sahil Mohammad Hussain, who's a 22-year-old student from Gujarat. and reportedly came to Russia on a study visa but found himself in prison on drug charges. And that is when the Russian army proposed that his sentence would be wiped clean within days, and they sent him to the front, this with minimal training to fight the war that he barely understood. And that's when he was captured by Ukrainian forces after 3 days. And that's also arriving as a reminder of how quickly these volunteer deals have turned tragic. His story matches several cases of Indians and even Nepali citizens who misled. But remember, the MEA has said that his identity is not being ascertained, and this could just be one of the cases where Indians are being duped.
Right. Thank you, Akanksha, for getting us that update. So, top MEA sources saying that those reports are now being verified. Now, shifting focus, United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer is en route to India for his 2-day visit. He has posted a video from the plane's cockpit with a caption, "Off to India," with some of the UK's most prominent businessmen to deliver for our people back home. Listen in.
Flight 9. This is the Prime Minister. I'm in the cockpit. And a very warm welcome to BA Flight 9100 to Mumbai. It's really fantastic to have you all on board. This is the biggest trade mission to India that the UK has ever sent. So I'm much looking forward to working with you as we explore all of the opportunities and take full advantage of the opportunities in our new free trade agreement. So safe flight, everybody. Enjoy the flight, and I'll give you further information once I've taken off. Thank you.
So that's the message coming in from Keir Starmer ahead of his arrival here in India. We will continue to track all developments coming in. For now, a quick break. More news and updates on the other side.
Didi. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Colleague now joins us, getting us all the latest from on ground in Patna. Aman, hectic parleys there going on in both camps. What have you gathered? Tejasvi has made it very clear that it is him versus Nitish Kumar. Whether the Congress likes it or not, he is the chief ministerial face of that Gathbandhan. But whether or not the Congress gets as many seats as they want, that's something that will have to be looked at. And the same goes for the NDA side as well.
Well, Poonam, yes, this is a very strange situation, I would say, and it happens every time in Bihar. Elections have been announced yesterday, but neither of the alliances have their seat distribution decided. And within the next 10 days, for the first phase, the nominations have to be filed. So time is really at a premium here. Hectic parleys on in Patna as well as Delhi. I've been to the offices of JDU and the RJD and the BJP today. They are thronged by people who are seeking tickets, coming there to meet the leaders and lobbying for their tickets as such. But that said, I think the troubles in the NDA are still lesser than the troubles in the Mahagathbandhan. Look at the NDA calculation. What I'm hearing is that both the BJP and the JDU want to contest more than 100 seats apiece. That means on the assembly of 243, only about 40 seats are left for the allies. Now, will it be Chirag Paswan getting half of those 40 seats? That seems to be very likely. About 7 to 8 seats going to Mr. Manchi, another 7 to 8 seats maybe going to Upendra Kushwaha, and maybe 20 to 22 seats to Chirag Paswan. That is the formula in the NDA, which seems to be getting finalized so far. I think we'll know more in the next couple of days. On the Mahagathbandhan side, however, the troubles are bigger because the RJD contested over 140 seats the last time. It will have to contest lesser seats this time, maybe 135 odd, and give lesser to the Congress also, about 55 to 60 seats, because Congress strike rate last time was not very good. They have a problem of plenty because they also have the VIP party, which is asking for a lion's share of nearly 60 seats. They're not going to get that much, most probably less than 20 seats. Also, the left party, which had a very good strike rate the last time, want at least 45 seats. So I think the RJD is trying to bring them down to about 35 seats. Tejasvi Yadav is holding a very important meeting in Patna today evening as we speak, with the left leaders, with all the Congress party as well as the VIP party. And tomorrow there is a Congress meeting in Delhi in which the final formula could be decided. But